What's up, everybody, and welcome to February. Yeah, it's February 1st. It is freezing in my office, and there's a lot going on this week. A lot of companies dropped earnings: Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. It just a lot in the industry, a lot of crappiness going on, a lot of good stuff. And if you're not looking into the weeds, especially on some of the gaming stuff, you're going to be miss what is unfolding right in front of us. And let's just dive in, shall we? So there's a lot of kind of security related stuff this week, actually kind of people playing around with security certificates. Both Facebook and Google have been found to be abusing Apple's enterprise certificate. And yeah, I think we've probably all heard this by now, but Facebook was basically stealing, well, not stealing, but paying teens and other people who signed up for this $20 a month to harvest all their data. Google was doing a similar type thing, and Apple said, hey, that's not cool, and revoked their security certificate, which kind of really screwed up their entire day, because what that basically stopped them from doing was testing all apps internally. Now, Apple has returned their certificates to Google, and I believe Facebook as well. Google got back on it first, mostly because Google is actually is paying Apple billions of dollars to be the default search engine on iOS. So yeah, Apple's not happy, but they're like, hey, we're not all that unhappy. But yeah, so if we'll see how that plays out, because Apple has been trying to push this privacy bent for a while. And these companies, these large technology juggernauts screwing with it, is obviously not making Tim Cook very happy. Other things happening this week on the outage side: Microsoft had two pretty bad outages. One being in Europe that was blocking from people from accessing their mailboxes. So if you were an Office 365 subscriber and you couldn't get your email, well, yeah, that was the problem. Also, Xbox Live had a very odd outage this week as well. Basically, the issue was that Microsoft rolled up a system update internally, and when you logged in to Xbox Live, which happens just about instantly on your console, you were presented with a black screen. Now, there was a real easy fix for this. All you had to do was unplug your Ethernet cable, but if you were looking to play online or do anything else like that, you were out of luck. And that kept the service offline for a couple hours. Fortunately, Microsoft was quick to notice the issue, and they rolled back the internal update to their systems and got everything back up and running. But I'm not expecting a full triage from Microsoft about what exactly happened like they do on their Azure side. But yeah. So that is that. Microsoft also released their Super Bowl ad this week, which I think is pretty cool. It's going right for the heartstrings. It's showing off their accessible gaming. If you remember, they have that new gaming controller, the accessibility controller, that allows anybody to game. And it says, when we all game, we win. And yeah, it's worth a watch, because I think it kind of shows where Microsoft is trying to go with this accessibility initiative. And it's a good commercial. It's really hard to say anything bad about it. So, also, the big stuff of the week is the earnings. There's a lot to digest here. There's two big things I want to talk about. Microsoft announced their earnings. We'll get to some other companies here in a little bit, but Microsoft announced earnings of net income of $8.4 billion. For the people who aren't financially savvy, that is how much money Microsoft put into the bank at the end of the day after paying all expenses. So that's quite a bit of money. They had $32.5 billion in revenue for the quarter. Now, first thing, Surface. Surface was up 39%. Now, if you look back a year previous about what they were selling, it's not too big of a surprise, because they introduced lower priced products with the Surface Pro 6 and the Laptop 2, which are much cheaper than the Surface Book 2. But here's the key. It's now a $1.8 billion business for Microsoft, at least last quarter. Surface brand has been crossing the $1 billion mark quarterly pretty frequently now. Now it's more of an exception than a rule when it does not. The next big milestone is $2 billion, and we'll see when they get there. Now, what we don't know is that is revenue. We don't know if Microsoft is actually making any money on this hardware, although I suspect that they are. They typically charge a premium for these products, and so yeah, I would have to think that they are making at least some money. I don't think that they are losing money by any means on Surface revenue. I was never able to determine what their actual gross margin is on some of this stuff. But $1.8 billion, we'll be looking for that $2 billion mark. I don't know if they will hit it in 2019 until maybe Q4, typically the holiday season, because that's when they're going to have a whole bunch of new products as well. So be on the lookout for that $2 billion moniker. I bet we'll be above $1 billion up until then, and then we will see what happens in about a year from now. Now, here is kind of the big news of the week, at least for me. And this comes on the Xbox side. So, overall revenue of Xbox grew 8%. That doesn't sound like a lot. It's like 8%. But yeah, it actually really is, because Xbox software and services revenue jumped 39%. Here's the big deal, guys. Microsoft grew revenue year over year when their hardware sales tanked. So if you remember, last year they launched the Xbox One X. This year, hardware revenues for the fourth quarter, fourth quarter calendar, which is Christmas time, hardware sales in gaming fell 19%. Hardware sales down. Gaming revenue is up 8%, driven by software and services. This is massive for Microsoft. This was actually their largest quarter ever for gaming revenue. And here's the big reason why this is so important. Microsoft is trying to position Xbox as a software as a service platform, such as Game Pass, such as Xbox Live. That's where they want to make their money. And if Microsoft can successfully prove that they can make and monetize the user after selling hardware to them at a rate that is quantifiable and repeatable, such as they are starting to show here with Game Pass and Xbox Live, they can effectively charge less for hardware. Microsoft doesn't need to make money on hardware if they know that they can monetize through reoccurring subscription charges to the user. Now, to the user, you're thinking, gosh, I hate paying this stuff. But you look at Game Pass. Game Pass is actually a pretty dang good deal. You look at Xbox Live Gold, we're all used to paying that. If Microsoft is effectively making quite a bit of margin on that, that is where they want to put their effort, which means that when they sell something like this, they're not so focused on making money on the box. Now, I don't think they want to lose money on consoles. We all heard the stories about, hey, you sell the console for a loss and you make it back on selling hard on the games. Every time you sell a game, Microsoft makes a certain amount of money. That is definitely a strategy that is absolutely not going away. But with the subscription services, it's another line of revenue. This is massive. I can't understate how important this is for the Xbox brand, that they have found a way to make more money by selling less hardware. Think about that. That is phenomenal for Phil Spencer, because that means he can be more aggressive with hardware pricing and hardware features, because he knows that if he gets this box into your house, he is going to make money on the services because it provides a great experience. This has me really, really excited. It really does, because this is going to be the catalyst for their go-forward strategy, right? And this isn't even their full kit and caboodle. Frank Shaw, who is, if you're not familiar with him, he's the global lead of communications. Whenever you request a comment, if it's a bad enough or hard enough question, it always percolates all the way up to him. He is where everything stops for communication. And he confirmed on Twitter that xCloud will be in public trials later this year. That is nothing brand new per se, but again, it reconfirms that Microsoft's gaming strategy is moving forward at a very quick pace, and that they are not pulling back from it. And again, he confirmed that, hey, that was their largest gaming revenue quarter ever. They have around 64 million Xbox Live active users. Now, that's not all paying gold, but that was the largest by far. It was up several million from year over year. What I'm trying to say here, guys, is Microsoft's Xbox business on paper looks very healthy. Microsoft is showing a good face here. They're showing that they don't need hardware sales to make money. They are showing that their hardware is a good component of their revenue, that they know that they need to get consoles into a lot of homes. And once they do, they have an excellent strategy for going forward and maintaining the brand and the platform. This makes me very excited for what Phil and his team are doing for the future. It should make you excited as an Xbox gamer. And if you aren't paying attention closely, you might just see, oh, they just had a good quarter, blah, blah, blah. It's the fact that they made this money without selling new hardware. Because granted, you're coming off the year after you released the Xbox One X. And so it's good. It's good. It's hard to undercut how important this actually is. Other things happening in the Xbox world. So this makes me excited as well, because I record a lot of clips on PUBG. You will now soon be able to share, actually you might be able to do it right now, on the Xbox and the Xbox app for iOS and Android. You can now share your saved clips. You don't have to do it through the frickin' UI on the Xbox, which is very clunky and very hard to type all your sweet memes for tweeting out all that stuff. So overall, a very good quarter for Microsoft. It wasn't exceptional like we've seen in some of the previous quarters, but I want to qualify that, because other companies like Nvidia and Intel have been struggling this quarter. And there's a pretty wide belief that we're heading into a slower growth phase or possibly even a recession type era. And the fact that Microsoft is remaining pretty stable right now is a true testament to how solid the brand is. They've got a lot of diversified revenue lines. They actually said their Windows revenue was down, partially blaming Intel for their lack of releasing of chips, which feels a little funky on the surface. Not Surface brand, but on the surface of that announcement. But overall, it didn't impact Microsoft's core brands or product because they're so diversified. And so in a pretty turbulent quarter for companies, Microsoft remained pretty steady. And one of those turbulent companies is actually Apple. Now, granted, I'm not going to sit here and dog Apple. They make a ton of money. Apple posted net income of $20 billion on revenues of $84.3. iPhone revenues dropped about 15% to $52 billion. So let's put that in perspective. Apple made $84.3 billion in the quarter. That's total revenue, cash brought in. That is a ton of money. Of that 84, $52 billion is made up of their iPhone. Now you understand why people are so concerned when they see even the slightest dip in iPhone sales for Apple. Apple's service business, which is growing, and Apple's trying to put a lot of effort into that. I think we're going to see big services push in 2019. Hit $10.87 billion. That is nothing to shy away from. I mean, that's a lot of money. But the problem is $10 billion compared to the $52 billion of iPhones. You can begin, again, to see that services is, a fifth of the $52 billion. So about 20%. 20% or a fifth, if I could, yeah. Anyways, their services revenue was up 19%. Apple, though, by the way, fret not for Cupertino. They have $245 billion in the bank. $245 billion. They could straight up buy Tesla for cash and not even, they'd still have $190 billion-ish in the bank. Just to kind of keep it in perspective how much money they have. And so Amazon also released their earnings as well, and they were in the 70 billion mark. They made about 3 billion in net income. And so, yeah. Actually, I think it was 3 billion overall. Apple, let me look at this, because one thing about Amazon is they make a ton of revenue, but the problem is they don't have margins. They don't make a lot on that. So actually what Amazon had was $72.4 billion in revenue. And for the year, guys, they hit 232 billion. But you put that in perspective that Apple has 245 billion in the bank. Anyways, so net income for the quarter was 3 billion, up from 1.9 billion a year ago. Amazon posted a net income of 10.1 billion, or up from 3 billion for the prior year. So Amazon made about $10 billion throughout the entire 2019. Now, that is kind of crazy because they made $10 billion, which is a lot of money, don't get me wrong, on $232 billion of sales in 2019. That margin is not great. Not great at all. It's very slim, but that's retail for you. That is the retail business. Yes, I know they have AWS, but I suspect that a lot of that $10 billion in net income actually came from probably AWS. And so it's been a big week of earning, guys. I hope that you guys got something out of this. I'm very bullish on Microsoft's gaming strategy right now, and I hope that it materializes and continues to grow at the rate that we expect and see. Sony posted fairly good revenue as well. They also sold, I think they're now crossed 100 million PlayStation 4s, and their revenue was roughly for their gaming business about twice that of Xbox. So it's a very healthy race between Microsoft and Xbox right now, or Microsoft and Xbox and Sony right now. Although Sony definitely has the lead, you can't undercut that. That is absolutely the truth. But at the same time, both companies are doing well in this space, which is good, because the best thing that can happen for a gamer is to be true competition between Microsoft and Sony, because when they fight, we win. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. My audiobook is now available for Beneath the Surface. If you haven't caught that yet, you can go pick that up. I'll be back next week, guys. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend.